turn our attention back to a battle going on. Really, it's once again, it's one of these, will the Native American communities, their land, their beliefs, their sacred grounds be sacrificed for 21st century industry in the United States of America, continuing the long genocide against the indigenous communities of North America. This is a battle we're following from the beginning, and we're joined again by Max Wilbert. He is a community organizer and a writer. He's the author of the new book, Bright Green Lies, How the Environmental Movement Lost Its Way and What We Can Do About It. And, he helped to launch the Protect Thacker Pass camp. Welcome, Max Wilbert. Tell us exactly where this is all happening.
Hi, Dan. Thanks so much. Yeah,
welcome.
Thanks so much for having me on again. It's good to be here. So Thacker Pass, or Peehee, as it's called in Paiute, is located just south of the Oregon border in northern Nevada. So if you draw a line between Boise and Reno, and about halfway, that's where this proposed mine site is located. It's in a high desert, sort of sagebrush steppe ecosystem. So there's no trees. It's about a mile above sea level. It's this beautiful, highly biodiverse place where the wildflowers are incredible in the spring. The pronghorn antelope, the fastest land animal on the planet, runs its ancient migration routes. It's a place where Paiute and Shoshone people have lived for generations. It's incredibly beautiful and lush, and it's threatened by this huge industrial project.
Wow. All right. Tell us about this project. Give us the coordinates. What do these folks who want to build this mine, who are they, and what exactly do they want to do, and what's the driving force?
Well, the company is called Lithium Americas. It's a Canadian mining company, and they are looking for lithium, as the name implies. Lithium is the main ingredient in a lot of batteries these days, including cell phone batteries, laptop batteries, but also a huge demand is rising for these because of electric cars and the need for batteries to store energy from solar panels for the nighttime, for example, when the sun isn't shining, or to store power from wind turbines when the wind isn't blowing. So there's massively growing demand for these, to the tune of like a 30-fold increase in demand over the next 9 years. 30-fold demand increase in 9 years, according to the International Energy Agency. So the prices are high for lithium. The industry is looking for as much as it can get, not just at this place in Thacker Pass, but there's lithium mine proposals all across Nevada. There's a big one in Arizona on some sacred Wallapai native land. There's a big one in North Carolina, and many others all over the world. These corporations are trying to, as usual, get as much raw material as they can to make as much profit as they can. Wow.
Listening to Flashpoints on Pacifica Radio, we're speaking with Max Wilbert. He helped to create the Protect Thacker Pass. They're resisting this lithium mine. And say a little bit more about what is at stake. Are these sacred lands? And how do the diggers, how do the extractors propose to deal with such sacred sites?
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't know that this was a sacred site when I first learned about these issues and got involved. But since then, I've made some friends on the Fort McDermott Paiute Shoshone reservation from that tribe. Their ancestors, have lived there for a long, long time. And I've learned from these elders and these different people that there's a lot of stories out there. There's a long history of human habitation, and it is a sacred place. I really encourage people to go online and just search for People of Red Mountain. You'll find a statement from this group of traditional people from the Fort McDermott tribe speaking out against this mine and explaining why it's so important to them. And, they say it much better than I ever could. So go read their words directly, people of Red Mountain. The plan that the mining company wants to do is to turn about 5,000 acres and probably much more in the future into an open pit mine. So what is currently now this pretty lush, biodiverse natural community with hundreds of species all interacting together, all building soil, sequestering carbon, providing life for each other, filtering water, creating fresh air. They want to bulldoze all that, dig a hole 400 feet deep across 5,000 acres, and turn that life into dead commodities, essentially. Turn it into lithium, which would go into factories and come out as batteries to get put in people's cars. So, a lot of people like to say that this type of thing is green, that it's good for the planet. And it is true if you sort of do a apples to apples comparison, looking at a gasoline car versus a lithium ion powered electric car, the carbon emissions are going to be lower for the electric car. That's just the way it is. But they're not negligible. The emissions aren't zero. It takes quite a bit of emissions to build that car in the first place. Creates a lot of pollution, a lot of ecological damage, just like building a fossil fuel powered car does. And, the point that I try and make is that we're not going to save the planet by consuming things. We're not going to save the planet by buying products that come out of giant factories produced by massive multinational corporations. That's simply not how we're going to solve the problems that we're facing.
Yeah, there's something called mass transportation. There are many countries around the world that are way ahead of us, and it really, this idea of the individual, the rugged individual. Now we're going to have the rugged individual, and we're going to be good Samaritans by having lithium batteries, except that we're going to have to dig it out from the sacred grounds. And we always know that the indigenous community are suffers. They don't get the benefits, but they suffer. They're brutalized, whether it's uranium pits or whatever the pit is. They're digging Mother Earth out from under the people who have been genocided off it. So we care a lot about this story, and you can see people going wild for lithium. What do we know in terms of other lithium factories and the way they're managed, or the way this company has managed other factories? Have they become danger zones? Have these mines, sometimes when they were building the pipelines, they had this vision in the middle of a pandemic for man camps. So they'd have all these special camps for men who could come in and build the pipeline. And then, of course, they would figure out ways to provide women, and there would be prostitution, and there would be all kinds of terrible things that come out of this kind of extraction industry. So this is just one of those issues. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're not making up the issues with lithium. They're well known, and anyone with basic research skills can look at places around the world where lithium mining is being done currently and is causing quite a bit of harm. One example is in Tibet, where you have rivers that have been poisoned by lithium mining. Of course, that's a colonized territory as well. You can look in Australia at lithium brine extraction, where they're using huge amounts of water, massive and massive quantities of water. You can look in South America, in Chile and Argentina, where native communities, indigenous communities down there are being dispossessed. Their water's being taken, their lands are being rendered uninhabitable because there's no water. They were already living these dry, pretty harsh climates, and now these lithium mines have come in and left them with nothing. So, it's a reality. These harms are there, they're happening now, and they're serious. and they're only going to get worse and worse as this demand for electric cars spikes. And, you know, I said it once and I'll say it again. We can't just rely on swapping out the fuel that's under the hood of our cars. We need to think much more deeply to get to the level of transformation that we need in this world. You know, for the vast majority of our time on this planet, we didn't have cars. We didn't have any way to, you know, go 60 miles an hour. It simply wasn't possible. And we survived. We did fine. And, you know, if it's simply not sustainable for us to have these technologies and these really fancy modern luxuries like electric cars, if it's not possible to do that without contributing to the climate crisis, contributing to the biodiversity and extinction crisis, and destroying sacred land like this, then I don't think we should have it. It's a luxury. It's not a necessity.
Right. And it was clear that we didn't need to gut and destroy the ancient forests of the West to build beautiful redwood houses, but they went ahead and we lost so much of that ancient forest that we need now for the environment. So this short-sightedness for the boom economy of the 1% is troubling. It's got to change. We have to see major changes on this. That's why we picked up on this story. We're glad that you were out there making people available. And there's a number of events coming up. There's something happening, I believe, on July 7th in Carson City. There's a number of actions. You want to just share a couple of them and how people might want to, maybe they want to take a journey, a pilgrimage, to see what life is like there and become a part of a gentle resistance. Of course, you know, I assume that's what you would like people to do.
Yeah, well, if people want to come out and visit the site, they're welcome to. We have a protection camp that's been set up for almost 6 months now on the site of the proposed mine. We welcome people to come out and join us. You know, come relatively self-sufficient if you can. We have a kitchen set up and some supplies and so on, so nobody's going to go hungry or not have first aid supplies and so on. We have that covered, but try and be self-sufficient if you can. We're currently doing a pressure campaign against the archaeology company that's been hired by Lithium Americas, the mining company, to go into Thacker Pass or Peehee and dig up all the cultural sites. There are over 1,000 cultural sites, archaeological sites on the mine site, on the mine location, according to the surveys that have been done out there. And it's a very important cultural site going back thousands of years. So this archaeology company has been hired to go in and essentially loot these archaeological sites, these artifacts, potentially even human remains. The elders tell us stories of a massacre that took place on Thacker Pass 200 or so years ago. And so it's very likely that there are human remains, bones, and blood, and the remains of human being in the soil of Thacker Pass. And that's why the people of Red Mountain have said, you know, destroying this place for a lithium mine is like taking a bulldozer to the Arlington National Cemetery and building an open pit mine on top of that. You know, that's how they feel about this project. And you know, we need to understand as a culture what has been done to the indigenous community, what has been done to the indigenous nations. It's not all in the past. I know there's all these stories coming out recently of hundreds, and now it seems like thousands, tens of thousands of children who died or were killed in the boarding school system in Canada. And of course, the United States has a similar legacy.
Right.
You know, the whole policy of kill the Indian, save the man. But that's ongoing, and destroying a people's culture is part of the definition of genocide, and that's what we're seeing here.
And that's what we're watching very closely here on Flashpoints. Max Wilbert, we appreciate the good information. We're going to take the team up there before too long and take a look around ourselves and do some broadcasts to get an idea of what we're talking about. It's always, we can talk a lot about it and you can tell us in beautiful descriptions, but nothing like going to see what it looks like and what they're trying to destroy in this one more manifestation of corporate interests over indigenous communities and the kind of communities and land that we all depend on to survive. So thank you, sir. Be safe. We'll talk to you soon. You are listening to Flashpoints on Pacifica Radio.